culture is actually
The gut ain't calling both games.
The New York Giants are just kind of there right now. I guess you could say it's the beginning of a rebuild, but they aren't doing much to try and shut off the old core if that's the case. They still think Daniel Jones is viable as a starter because the whole city has experienced Stockholm Syndrome due to dealing with horrors beyond our comprehension. Just because you had to suffer through Jake Fromm and Mike Lennon doesn't mean that what you're doing is okay. Friends don't let friends start Danny Derps. You start Tyrod Taylor, wait for him to get injured, and then start Danny Derps. We're just waiting for the shoe to drop with the likes of Saquon and James Bradbury. They might be able to get something for both of them, you know? It's a shame that they were squandered here. The G-Men won't find a way to fuck up 2 top 10 picks, right?
New York Football Giants select Kayvon Thibodeau, defensive end, Oregon.
Somewhere in Dallas, Jerry Jones is crushing a 10-gallon hat full of babies under a vice. The Cowboys wanted Thibodeau bad. And while his stock fell from what was a potential number 1 pick, he still offers incredible upside as an edge. Gifted by the gods with athleticism, Kayvon should be an immediate threat to every tackle he faces at the next level. Yes, even against the Cowboys. The shitposter in me was hoping the Giants would fuck this up like they did in the past, but alas, they used their heads. We lament this loss.
The New York Giants select Evan Neal, tackle, Alabama.
The Giants are making sensible picks. Can we get Dave Gettleman back? I miss my humor with the NFL draft. Neal was the perfect pick for them to fall to 7 since they need an immediate replacement for Nate Solder. To be fair, a wooden plank might do better than what Solder's declining skills had done in New York. Neal is probably the most NFL-ready tackle out of this class. Best of all, he's played right tackle in college, so fits immediate need for the Giants. We may lament our loss of hilarity, but we can relish in old regrets. Kadarius Toney has demanded a trade out. And while he's probably traded for a 5th-round pick, New York went and reached for a wideout in the 2nd round with the skill set of Kadarius Toney. God, Dave Gettleman was so fucking terrible. It's the last chance for a ton of players in Giant Land. Dave Gettleman was able to sneak off after ruining the team, but his sloppy seconds are still around. G-Men can try to spin Daniel Jones as a good quarterback and Saquon having some semblance of health, but both are more than likely to be gone after this year. New regimes tend to prefer their own projects at skill positions. Maybe Kenny Golladay will score a touchdown and Kadarius Toney won't be completely misused. And maybe the entire team won't fall apart due to injury yet again. That's all the Giants are at this point. A bunch of maybes and false hope. I mean, they could win the NFC East, but that's if every single thing goes right. The division isn't too far removed from tank division status. And with their unsung defense, they could make noise in the future. That noise could be from Kayvon Thibodeau's injury or the fans wanting Dave Gettleman dead, but the possibility is there. Even with the teams that are choosing to blow it up and start from scratch, there is still plenty of intrigue with the NFC. So many teams desperate to win a championship or go far into January. And even more trying to make a name for themselves. The NFC East hasn't had a repeat champion in years. So I'm going to maintain that narrative and pick Philly to win it. The NFC North is still Green Bay's to lose, but they're slowly losing grip on their stronghold. The NFC South has a few suitors, but the Bucs are still too loaded to really fail unless they get injured to hell and back. The NFC West? Huge question mark, but I think the Rams are still the team to beat. But what about the wild cards? It's tough to choose, there are so many good options here. In this case, I'm choosing the Niners, Saints, and Vikings. Yes, the Vikings. I think people are sleeping on them. Then again, we've said this about them before, only for them to fall apart. Sorry about that, Minnesota. The biggest problem I have with Tennessee is that they refuse to finish off their opponents when they get the chance to. It happened a good bit last season, it happened in the playoffs against Cincinnati, and it happened again at home against the fucking Giants. You know, the team that couldn't do shit against the Titans' stout defense for most of the first half? Well, it turns out that Saquon Barkley is actually pretty talented when healthy, and it's hard to contain him for long. Don't forget the one pass Daniel Jones makes where you think he could be something long-term for a franchise. Those 2 moments made it a game. Tennessee would score a touchdown because that's expected of a team with playoff aspirations, but they keep self-destructing. It happens on offense. It happens on special teams with muffed punts. It happens with Daniel Jones reminding us all he's Daniel Jones. Yet the Titans still refuse to keep the foot on the fucking throat. You can stop Saquon anytime you want, but they have options. These ain't the old Giants led by a wooden plank or a worthless hack. These are G-men with cojones. They're not just gonna go for it on 4th and 1, they'll do a QB rollout. They're not only going to score a TD on you, they're going for 2. Fuck that pesky ass overtime. They're gonna finish this game and they're gonna get it. But the Titans won't lose here. New York can't stop taking penalties at key times. And with this pass to field goal range, this should end it. Or at least it better.
Rookie Ryan Stonehouse, the holder. The kick by Bullock is off the wall, and it is no good!
Jesus fucking Christ, Tennessee! You have every opportunity to shit on a pathetic franchise, yet all you did was fuck around for 60 minutes. Well, guess what, boys? You just found out. Fat Randy gifted the G-Men their first winning record since 2016. New Yorkers actually have hope. I'd lament such a tragedy, but Tennessee deserved to lose for this performance. And with this colossal joke out of the way, the leader of the AFC South is currently the Houston Texans? Seriously, how the fuck do you lose to the Giants? Every opponent of theirs is supposed to shit gold afterwards.
You blew it, boy! You really blew it!
We have entered hell. The New York Giants aren't complete ass. Somewhere in the distance, the devil is hosting a boat party and we're all invited to it. It's amazing what a coach that isn't completely useless can do for a franchise. Brian Daboll and Wink Martindale have added elements of tenacity and persistence to all facets of play. The G-Men terrorized Baker Mayfield and company all game. Note that this is without 2 of their best pass rushers. You can say that the Giants have played an overrated Titans and shitty Carolina, but this team just feels different. They fight and claw for wins. When New York needed plays, they stepped up and made things happen. The Panthers may be dealing with an anchor the size of Matt Rule, but it's a promising start. All looks bright on the perilous road to 7-10. For the Giants, that's called a breakthrough. Speak of the devil, it's Mike McCarthy's team in a game broadcast by Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. It's not in Dallas, but we can compromise. The Giants are trying to rebuild decaying and shattered foundations, and you can see glimpses of a better tomorrow. However, when you think they have a chance to emerge into something better over these past few years, they come up short in nearly every category. The run defense was gashed by Zeke and Tony Pollard. Evan Neal was turned into a goddamn saloon door by edge rushers all night. Kenny Golladay talks about being disrespected, yet is completely useless when he's on the field. Ref ball fucks them over at the worst possible times. Their quarterback is Daniel Jones. He's running for his life most of the game, but he's still Daniel Jones. They'll always keep you wanting more out of him. Just can't do it. That's the story of the Giants. Put up a good fight, but in the end, just can't overcome their hated rival. 17 unanswered points lead the Cowboys to victory. To make things worse, Danny had his patented deflating turnover on the final drive. And they lost Sterling Shepard. It's a shame to see. Wait a minute, how the hell is Dallas 2-1 without Dak? We were all anticipating one of the ugliest games this league had seen in recent memory throughout the week. Like a lot of things in New York as of late, this game did not disappoint. It was a complete shit show and anything resembling competent play. The only thing that seemed to be working for both sides was the rushing attack. Chicago may not have had David Montgomery, but that didn't matter. Everything else was an absolute wreck. Passing, maybe gas because New York didn't try to throw and Chicago threw waves of defenders in Justin Fields' face. This is one of those games where neither team deserved to win, but a tie would be cruel and unusual punishment for the audience. We may as well pick someone to win out of a hat, so victory to the Giants. They now become the worst 3-1 team to apparently ever exist. The G-Men have no wideouts, a porous line, no run defense, Daniel Jones got injured, Tyrod Taylor came in and he got injured, and Justin Fields can only throw one good pass a game. But you're 3-1. Small victories, New York, even if they're against shitty teams. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Green Bay becoming complacent and over-relying on Aaron Rodgers to do anything on offense. Where have I seen this before? Did Mike McCarthy lose a shit ton of weight recently? Because if I didn't know any better, the Packers got way too cocky and looked past their opponent. The first half was the standard Packers cruising out to an early 17-3 lead. But after that, what the hell was that offensive game plan? All they did was predictably throw the ball and fail miserably. The defense couldn't get off the field for long stretches of time. New York straight up suffocated a team ripe for the kill. G-Men were running wild, almost championship contender-esque. 17 consecutive points to not only snatch the game away, but take the lead. Are you sure that Aaron Rodgers calling his own plays is still a good idea, Matt? Not trying to run the ball with heavy investment in your running backs is a good idea, Matt? Scoring no offensive points in the second half is a good idea, Matt? Alright, Aaron Rodgers will just bail the team out again like he's had to for over a decade and carry the team on a final drive.
Right there, that shoulder tap. You ready for Lazard?
Ball batted again. Incomplete. The Giants hold the Packers out of the end zone. 1:02 to go.
Or not. So the Giants were allegedly the worst 3-1 team to ever exist, huh? The way they ripped Green Bay's heart out, they earned this one. To think they nearly kept Joe Judge around instead of make the logical decision. Goddamn. Many still doubt the Giants. They may lack things like talent and skill at key positions and long-term viability, but I don't care. Remember, embrace chaos. A good chunk of the NFL is terrible this year, and Wink Martindale is eager for revenge against the team that fired him. It wasn't like his unit was injured to hell or anything, you know? He proved it here. If there's one thing you don't do, you never trust Baltimore with anything of importance. Key situations, sizable leads, anything. New York has gotten them ensnared in their trap of plodding, grindy football. Unfortunately, Baltimore ignored all warnings and proceeded to do the one thing that dooms them. Secure a double-digit lead. These fuckers always let off the gas when this happens. You can't do that against a scrappy group like the Giants. They'll just seamlessly march down the field without breaking a sweat. No shit, they scored a touchdown. That's what always happens with Baltimore. But it's alright. The high-end talent will bail them out.
So now the Ravens facing a 3rd and 6. They go empty.
Oh no!
Oh, he lost the football. Scoops it back up. Jackson throws. Intercepted. Giants have it with Julian Love.
This man wants a fully guaranteed contract, and he's still doing shit like this. I knew the Ravens were going to lose this game before it was played. They're completely unreliable. They'll proceed to shit the bed thanks to a hollowed-out roster and lazy game planning. Like most games, the Giants ripped their souls out and forced them to watch as they feasted on it with their dying breath. Attention, John Harbaugh and Greg Roman. Tick, tick, motherfuckers. Your days are numbered. It's honestly been years overdue. I have one question. Why are the G-Men an underdog in this match? Have you seen how they've played throughout the year? They thrive on brutally ugly football. New York is devised to trap you in the muck and force you to play on their level. Jacksonville is progressing, but they still aren't that good. How many times do they have to bludgeon you over the head with a rusty cleaver until you get it? They'll play you tight, and they'll capitalize on every single mistake you make. Oh, you want to rush with Travis Etienne for a touchdown? Not with the way he's handling the football. The contest is close, but all I can guess is that Vegas wanted to make sure their bet's covered. Oh my goodness, Dexter Lawrence touched the QB's ass without saying good game. Roughing the passer! That bullshit leads to a Jags touchdown, but once again, what have the Giants been good at this year? Overcoming adversity. Daniel Jones hasn't been a great quarterback in his career, but he's been taking what's been given to him. He's managing the game well, which is a good sign for his future, whether it be here or elsewhere. The old Danny Derps would have turned the ball over 20 times by now. Here he takes them to the end zone with Saquon for the lead. However, despite another long drive managed by the Giants, Jacksonville still has a chance to win the game with a minute left. Cue more incredible ref ball, because let's be honest, Vegas never enjoys paying out. Zebras are doing everything in their power to help the Jags win. But the Giants are holding, and it'll come down to one final play.
The throw at the goal line. Caught by Christian Kirk. But there's no more time.
The Titans suddenly feel phantom pain. Thanks to their yeoman's mentality, the Giants are 6-1. What a goddamn world. New York doesn't have to suffer through shitty sports teams. Now, only if I could say the same for the Yankees. Tell any fan of the NFL back in August that this was going to be the only match with both opponents over 500 in Week 8. You'd have been insta-banned from any platform or chat room you dared to speak about this on. The Giants and Seahawks had no expectations headed into the year. Yet both are running with the opportunity. The G-Men, this is quite literal. Maybe they'll acquire competent receivers and linemen in this next lifetime. The Seahawks have a balanced attack, led by the surprising combination of K9, Tyler Lockett, and the modern answer to Rich Gannon and Geno Smith. Somewhere Ben McAdoo is pleasuring himself to somehow being justified in benching Eli for him. It was a tenacious game, one that exemplified old-school defensive football. The Giants could not break out of Seattle's web. They'll try and capitalize on Seattle's mistakes, but every time they get a chance to, Richie James will find a way to fuck up on punt return duty. Congratulations, Richie. You are now the most hated man in New York outside of Hal Steinbrenner. Seattle secures the win and potential legitimacy as a contender in the post-Russ age. In the end, Gino can only thank those responsible for his ascension. Ben McAdoo and Jerry Reese. See? You can get revenge for past slights in this league. The G-Men this year has been a pleasant surprise. They may be dancing through raindrops, but they're winning games they normally lose in embarrassing fashion. And that's a testament to the new regime they have. This is in spite of trying to clean up the errors made by Dave Gettleman. One just happened to be Kadarius Toney. Solid wideout, whenever he bothered to step on the field. He was injury-prone, and if rumblings are correct, to malcontent. They drafted his replacement in Wan'Dale Robinson in the last draft. The writing was on the wall. His new destination? Kansas City, where he somehow got a compensatory 3rd and a 6th round pick. Now that I say this, watch him become the next Tyreek Hill with his excellent agility in an Andy Reid offense. Not that the Giants care, they just want receivers that can move their legs and catch. Hey, OBJ, you feel like coming back? The Houston Texans are the tank of tanks. A legendary mammoth that only seeks one outcome: to lose for their next great savior. The sins of the butt-chin continue to haunt them, and the G-Men will take advantage of their shittiness. The Giants themselves were sloppy as well. Ridiculously one-dimensional, featuring Kenny Golladay giving less effort than Hainsworth did after he got paid. Okay, it might not be that bad yet. If he had captaincy, they'd strip it like Houston did for Brandon Cooks. The fortunate thing for the Giants is, once again, they're playing the Texans. They lack many critical aspects of being a successful team. Maintaining some semblance of a pulse is all they need to get to 7-2. Glorious tanks roll along in Texas, for their quest for Tank Bowl greatness is unabated in New York. The Giants are merely playing checkers. Houston's eating the pieces in an attempt not to play. Many Giants fans I know were cynical about how this game was going to turn out. As much as I tried to tell them they were playing Detroit, they lamented how this was going to be a trap game for the team. I will never doubt them again. This was as much of a regression to the old mean for New York as any matchup has been this season. The Lions had a surprisingly solid game plan. Shut down Saquon and force Daniel Jones to win with his arm. There's a reason why Danny's been better as a secondary piece for the team. Just can't do it on his own. Not with how shitty his receiving core is. The Lions broke through the G-Men's stout defensive unit with solid, well-rounded play led by Jamal Williams' 3 touchdowns. The result is Detroit's 3rd straight win. The surge has gotten them to 2nd place in the NFC North. They are 4-6. That's all that needs to be said about this NFL season. Alien civilizations will see this in the future and deem that humanity is not worth saving for this reason alone. Egypt had the pyramids, we have the fucking Detroit Lions. So much for modern human achievement. The Giants have been punching above their weight for a good bit. This may be the part where they finally fall back down to earth. In the wasteland of G-Men, their player core is so wrecked by injury it looks like a remake of Escape from New York. Their coaching and scheming, they'll keep it as close as they can. Dak is throwing some terrible balls in the first half. Daniel Jones lived up to his nickname of Danny Dimes, and the receiver actually caught it! The G-Men can't stop Dallas's running game whatsoever, and it's uncomfortably close for our liking, but we must return to normalcy. New York goes back to being doomers, and Dallas gets eternally overhyped by the media. Easy to do when the Giants are without a chunk of their O-line. Daniel Jones would help, but he missed some big throws. It's enough to bring Dallas to legitimacy as a unit. This is probably the best team they have on paper in at least a few years. There's a time to do something in January, here's your chance. I'll wait until then to make a judgment. Welcome to Topsy-Turvy World. It's a place where a matchup between the Giants and Commies has serious playoff implications for both teams. This is the first big matchup that these two have had against each other since Week 17 in 2016. Washington will want to make sure that result doesn't happen again. Unfortunately for them, New York is keen on staving off a losing streak, and despite their limited abilities, they want to one-up a division rival. The result is a tightly knit neck-and-neck affair, one where it's not the prettiest of matchups, but both will work hard to achieve the glories of victory. The G-men force a fumble to push the envelope. They even find the end zone again to secure the lead, but they can't break through to secure a victory. It's a rugby scrum if there ever was one. Every inch is precious, yet no real progress is being made by either team. It's a stalemate led by either good defense or shitty offense, depending on how you view things. But Taylor Heineke has moxie. He will unleash his power of having 10,000 dogs in him at a moment's notice. He'll make clutch throw after clutch throw until the inevitable happens.
And now Heineke over the middle. It's Dodson. Dodson spins. Whoa! To the end zone. Touchdown!
The game is tied thanks to incredible individual efforts. Despite this momentum, neither team can do anything with it. We must endure a round of overtime. It will be full of stalled drives, punting aplenty, and neither team able to power through the grind of no man's land. However, New York has a chance to overcome such adversity. They reach field goal range with time winding down. All they need is Graham Gano to send them home.
From 58, Gano's kick is short. Oh!
The ball took that literally and came up just short. We must sacrifice this game to the gods for the almighty tie. Neither team really deserved to win, so we just kicked the can down the road. The ultimate conclusion to this storyline is conveniently in 2 weeks. It's all for ratings, I swear. Giants, I think your 15 minutes might be up. It was a hell of a ride, I'll admit, but you were punching well above your weight class. With how they lack health and talent and a game plan where Saquon is stuffed and everything else, it was only a matter of time before they fell off. The Eagles were in your same spot a bit ago. They don't want to go back there again. They will destroy whatever is supposed to be resembling a defense for the G-men. Absolute annihilation by land, air, sea, and probably by underground tunnels. Philadelphia picked off every opponent on the field one by one. And there was no mercy. Especially not for a division rival. The NFC East is so elated that A.J. Brown's in their division that they want to hire John Robinson simply so they can immediately fire him. New York, your playoff hopes still exist, but is it really worth it at this point? You're just gonna get piped in the wildcard round by a superior opponent. If you happen to make it there, you may just face off against, well, look at that, Philadelphia! The playoff push is reaching its final stages. Only one spot has been clinched by Philadelphia, but 4 weeks remain. Philadelphia obviously has number 1 seed, but the division is still up for grabs. Minnesota, after an ugly loss this past week, is still 2nd seed, and the NFC North is technically secured as well. The torrid pace of the Niners has them starting to run away with the West in 3rd place right now. But the NFC South is best not discussed. Tampa Bay only has it because the division is straight up awful. Meanwhile, Dallas is sitting pretty with 10 wins and first wildcard. After that, it's a mosh pit. Washington and the Giants are currently tied at 7-5-1, and Seattle struggling to maintain form with an easy schedule. Detroit's creeping up though. And don't forget the rest of the garbage in the NFC South still has a chance. The picture will become clearer as time goes on. And as we all know, there's only one rule to follow.
Don't get eliminated!
This is probably the most critical matchup of the year from a playoff perspective. We need part 2 since last episode ended on a climax. Gotta keep the audience hooked, you know. For the G-men, they need to rebound after a rather lengthy skid. Strip sacks by Kayvon Thibodeau tend to help out with that. Driving down the field with efficient offense tends to help with that. It's 14-3 and New York is cruising into halftime. However, controversy takes center stage. The wondrous might of ref ball and Washington's implosion overtake this throwback to the 70s. One of the softest offensive pass interference penalties you will ever see on a 2-point conversion. After that, Joey Sly happens. As the game continues on, stalled drives force a field goal. And returning to the red zone, a devastating fumble by Heineke forces the end of a long drive all its own. Now down by 8, it's do or die time for the Commies. They will push down the field, as is written, and solve the labyrinth of the Giants' defense for a crucial touchdown. Never mind, it's penalized for illegal formation? They still call that on whiteouts? Nope, sorry Washington, you're gonna be forced to eat shit because Taylor Heineke isn't talented enough to overcome all the elements. And to add more salt in the wound, Curtis Samuel was draped on the final play of the game. Ref ball reigns supreme. But that doesn't explain everything. Washington pissed away a ton of chances. The Giants really didn't win, but the Commies lost it. It's probably gonna cost them a playoff spot. I don't blame the NFL if they tried to rig it. I'd rather have the New York market than cater to Dan Snyder. We've had quite a lot of teams reach playoff land this week, didn't we? It doesn't mean we're anywhere close to settling how things will shake out. Philly still holds number 1 seed and can clinch their division with either a win or Dallas loss. Minnesota and San Francisco both clinched their division since there's no elite team rivaling them in division. It's only positioning they're playing for. They won't have to worry about Tampa Bay. They are ass. And their division is even more ass. Please delete it from our existence. The winner of this shit pile will probably be hosting a playoff game against the Cowboys. And we will wish for death. The other 2 wildcard spots are currently held by the Giants and Commies despite the G-Men winning last week. Seattle is falling hard while Detroit is rumbling back into the picture after being left for dead. Green Bay hangs on by a thread. And so does the rest of the NFC South. This is gonna be quite fucky, isn't it? Everyone left, you know what to say. Don't get eliminated! We've seen plenty of games where one team is an incredibly inconsistent outfit that exists to agonize their fan base. But what happens if both teams give their fans endless widowmakers? There's no need to fantasize about such a mass extinction event. It happened with the Vikings and Giants, 2 franchises that have greatly exceeded expectations placed upon them. But have those watching wonder when the other shoe will fall? My question is, does anyone survive this game in attendance? Or is it like the Ark of the Covenant where those that watch die gruesome deaths? They're at least getting a good matchup to watch in the process. It's a fight to the bitter end. A duel where both teams know the perils of losing. Neither can afford to for their ambitions. That's why the pendulum constantly swings back and forth, each maintaining grasp of their enemy just to make sure they won't get away. The G-Men are slowly creeping back into the picture despite their mistakes, but a blocked punt in their own territory is cause for alarm. Minnesota scores a touchdown and the Giants are down by 8 in the 4th. They need a great drive to have any chance of success. With Daniel Jones and Saquon leading the way, New York not only scores a touchdown, they tie the game with 2 minutes left. So how do we make this even more incomprehensible? Minnesota still has a chance to win, and they've made it to the fringes of field goal range. But with their reputation, we're probably headed to OT.
From 61. And he has done it again!
The Vikings making clutch field goals with regularity. I think this was foretold as one of the signs of the end times. Greg Joseph, of all kickers, booted a 61-yard game winner willy-nilly. Minnesota escapes the clutches of failure yet again. I don't want to live in this timeline. Roger Goodell's riding above me as one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. With a few big losses this week, the NFL playoff picture has become a mosh pit, as has been written for time eternal. The NFC East is still the same scenario as before. Winning clinch for Philly, and that includes the number 1 seed. If Dallas loses once as well, they are doomed to play as a road team in the wild card. The NFC South is still the division that should not exist, and Tampa Bay can seal it away with a win against the Panthers. If Carolina wins, though, we continue down the chaos timeline. New Orleans is still technically alive, but will need a lot to happen to win the South. With wildcards, Dallas most likely will be headed to the NFC South winner. The Giants still sit comfy, a game ahead of Washington for the 2nd spot, with the Commies taking last seat for now. With Detroit and Seattle both losing last week, Green Bay can bullshit their way to a postseason berth with a few more things happening in their favor. But they need the Lions and Seahawks to keep losing. The Saints can also clinch a wild card, but it's an extreme long shot. But it's a shot nonetheless. And if you have that, you can still chant the rule. Don't get eliminated! In a year of heart attacks and a complete lack of talent, the football gods chose to offer mercy to the New York Giants. It's okay, Giants fans, they tell you. We will grant you an easy, decisive victory for once. To prove it, here are the Indianapolis Colts to be sent a sacrificial slaughter at MetLife Stadium. Nick Foles is somehow starting again, and he's here to job to the stars of the show. That being you boys. you will glide above the earth itself and shine like the sun. Big Dick Nick's member will be snapped by your might. And Kayvon Thibodeau will celebrate as he writhes in pain on the ground. It's okay, Kayvon didn't know he was injured during his celly. There will be plenty more celebrating to come with this victory. New York may lack many things, but a playoff berth is no longer one of them. Just avoid boats for the foreseeable future. I think you know why. The NFC East is also somehow still up for grabs, with Philadelphia being winning clinch for the third week in a row. If Dallas wins and Philly loses next week, we all die. Every other division is locked up, but number 1 seed is still up for grabs. Philly should have it, but if they lose and San Fran wins, the Niners get it. If both of them lose and Dallas wins, we all die more. Then the 7th seed. Green Bay now controls their own destiny, God help us all. If Green Bay suffers another January home loss, Seattle would have to win to get it. If both the Packers and Seahawks lose, Detroit would slingshot back to the top. It's a lot to digest, and hard to comprehend considering situations. But we must remember, don't get eliminated! None of us knew how it happened, but Philly is in a must-win situation. Fortunately for them, 2 things. First, Jalen Hurts is back, merely to shake off the rust of being out for a couple of games. Secondly, the G-Men chose to not take revenge for 2020. They rested their starters, resulting in Davis Webb finally getting his first start in the NFL, in his second tour of duty with the team. Therefore, it's to little surprise that the Eagles were able to limp across the finish line just ahead of their opponents. The situation was far from pretty, but Philly got it done. They've won both the NFC East and the number 1 seed. There are concerns, but it was nothing but a tune-up for greater challenges that lie ahead. They now get the privilege to rest up and prepare for their next opponent, whomever that may be. Could even be the Giants if they beat Minnesota. You know what shocks me the most? That Kenny Golladay managed to make his first touchdown catch as a Giant in the most ironic way possible, with an outstanding grab in garbage time. And there you have one of the sloppiest NFL seasons we've seen in a long time. Depending on how you view things, it's either thanks to a revival of defense or incredibly terrible offense. I'm on the side of the latter, but when you see a collapse of anything resembling discipline and technique, it tends to be like that. But as the playoffs await, it's time to get sappy and sentimental. I consider Sportsball as a project of sorts, and it feels weird when it's over. I want to thank you for joining me for another year of this madness, and I wish you all nothing but the best. It's been 6 seasons since I started this series, and I somehow haven't lost my damn mind yet. Perhaps these playoffs will do the trick. I'll see you all for the Haters Guide. This Giants team has proven to us all a fact. You can indeed make the playoffs without anything resembling talent. When you have a quarterback who isn't forced to do much, throwing to receivers that can catch, and an offensive line as consistent as ocean waves. Being bogged down in cap hell by Dave Gettleman's personal hellscape, coming off a year where the team was slowly decapitated by key injuries. The fact that they made it this far either proves the power of good coaching or how terrible the league was in general. Probably more to do with Saquon Barkley finally being able to stay healthy enough to show off his transcendent talents. He's been carrying this offense on his back, and where he goes, the G-Men go with him. There's no real pressure to do anything. This year has no expectations besides basking in the warmth. Where they go from here? Who knows? But the time has come to embrace their destiny. Hopefully without the half-decade of darkness afterwards. This outcome shouldn't be surprising. The Giants were playing way over their heads all season. Marching into Philly was their death sentence, merely being chucked into a gladiator pit to be slaughtered by Eagles. They were a far superior class of team, and it showed all game long. Philly forced Daniel Jones to beat them with his arm, and he just can't do it. The G-Men didn't stand a chance from the opening kickoff, and it was a slow and painful death for 60 minutes. It's a damn good season for a team that needed it, but this outcome leaves them with more questions than answers if you believe it. New York has a fascinating offseason coming up. What do you do with Danny and Saquon? Keep one, both, or neither? Does management feel that this season was a fluke, or do they have potential for something more? There are arguments either way, and I trust Shane and Dable to guide them down the right path. They've earned it after this.